but then we still gon' bounce through it and bounce back from it only way we.
Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy Prince J. Grimes, senior writer at Bet for the Win, and this is Prince J Live. Thanks for tapping in again with your boy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And today, we're going to keep it short and simple. Not a whole lot of news going on right now, but we did have some big news yesterday. The New York Knicks went ahead and decided to fire Tom Thibodeau. And we can go ahead and jump right into that. Got a couple other things I want to touch on, but that's the big thing right now. I think that everyone is talking about right now. Why, after reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, finally, for the first time in 25 years, would the New York Knicks fire Tom Thibodeau? It's a fair question. It is a fair question, especially considering how mediocre, really to below average, this team has been over the last 25 years since the last time they really made some noise in the NBA playoffs. And you finally land on a coach who has consistently delivered results, and you fire him when he takes you as far as you've been in that time. It is a perplexing decision to make if you're only comparing what Tom Thibodeau has done to past New York Knicks seasons. That is a very losing mentality, I gotta admit. I think the move was justified. I'm looking at this through the lens of where we expected the Knicks to go, what we expected the Knicks to do, versus what they actually accomplished. Now, if you look at it through the lens of, okay, well, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, that was about the ceiling for this team, then fine. Tom met every goal expectation that you think he should have. Maybe they should have kept him. And I'll admit, the Eastern Conference Finals was the ceiling for me for this team going into the season. So he did reach that. Here's the problem, though. The only reason that was the ceiling was because we thought they would run into the Boston Celtics there. And that would be the team they lost to, a healthy Boston Celtics team. What ended up happening is they ran into the Celtics a round earlier. They did beat the Celtics, but then they lost to the Pacers. And look, I know everyone wants to put things into the perspective of what recently transpired and say, hey, the Pacers were better than we thought they were. Fine. Why weren't the Knicks? Why weren't the Knicks better than we thought they were going to be? Because I got to tell you, as far as the Knicks went, they underperformed this season based on expectations. They underperformed. And I know people like to look at the conference finals and say, but look how far they went. Yeah, they made it to the conference finals. They also didn't look that good in the playoff run to the conference finals. They got lucky a lot in that Detroit Pistons series. Mind you, a Pistons team that was in the playoffs for the first time in a long time, led by a young superstar in the making, Cade Cunningham, with a bunch of role players over there, bunch of guys who y'all can't name, and the Pistons really gave the Knicks a tough time. And then the Celtics, sure, the Knicks upset them, and I don't even want to get into the Jason Tatum injury because the Knicks were on their way to winning that series before he got hurt. But let's not forget the Celtics led by 20 points in each of those first two games that the Knicks ultimately ended up coming back to win. Why did it take for them to get down by 20 points each time for the Knicks to finally start playing? You want to put it on the players, fine. I put that on coaching. The coach did not seem to have this team prepared going into these games. Even in that Pacers series, they had to make a few comebacks. And then there were games where they were leading, and the Pacers were able to make a comeback and win games they weren't supposed to win. So the Knicks were a very disjointed team all season, man. You can miss me with but they went to the conference finals. Yeah, a lot of things fell into place for that to happen. And I'm not necessarily giving the coach all the credit in the world for that. Mind you, in that Pacers series, it took for them to be down 2-0 before Tom Thibodeau really started making some adjustments, pulling some levers that actually worked, that made you question, well, why didn't you try that sooner? I know a lot of people are blaming the bench. Oh, they didn't really have a lot of depth. Fine. I hear you. But it is kind of funny how when he went to a few of those guys on the bench later in the Pacers series, it worked out. Maybe you should have gave those guys a little bit more playing time during the regular season, kind of worked them into the rotation. Maybe they weren't as bad as we all think they were. Because I gotta be honest with you, man. We talk about depth in the NBA, and we point to teams like the Thunder, who obviously have a deep team. They got guys like Alex Caruso coming off the bench. I think he's the big one. Cason Wallace obviously is a good defender. These aren't household names. And don't get me wrong, Alex Caruso, the Knicks would love to have a guy like that. They don't have a guy like that. Caruso's not a guy who's coming in there giving you a bunch of buckets, though. He's a smart player who plays very good defense. These aren't, outside of him, who can you name on that Thunder bench? You got Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe. Like, these aren't household names. These are guys who the coaching staff built up trust in these guys so that when it's time to go to them, those guys are bought in. They're playing their role. Well, if you don't give guys a chance to buy into it, then, of course, when you go to them, they might not be ready. In the case of the Knicks, they had a bunch of veteran journeymen on their bench who all they're looking for is a chance to play. So when they got that chance in the Indiana series, I'm talking about guys like Landry Shamet, Precious Achiuwa, DeLon Wright. Like, these guys gave them valuable minutes. Maybe Tom should have trusted them a little more. But this is what he does, right? He runs that starting five into the ground. You know, he had this one six-man Miles McBride who he probably didn't even play him enough or in the right ways. Never really wanted to experiment with the 5-and-out strategy. Throw Cat to the 5, OG at the 4, Bridges at the 3, McBride at the 2, Brunson at the 1. We never really got to see that lineup a whole lot. Tom is just not a guy who's that flexible. And so I think he deserves all the credit in the world for taking the Knicks as far as he did. Let's look at what he did over his 5 years with New York. 41-31 the first year. 37-45 the second year. All right. He did make the playoffs that first year. Mind you, that was a huge turnaround from what were the Knicks before Tom got there in 2020? They were 21-45. So he took them from 41 wins, 21 wins to 41 wins in one season. That's huge, man. He deserves a lot of credit for that. Got them into the playoffs. They lost in the first round to the Hawks. That was Julius Randle right there. The next year, they took a step back. 37-45. Why did they take a step back? I want to say injuries played a factor. No, they just weren't that good. I mean, that's really what it came down to. They just weren't that good. Kemba Walker, they had come in there as point guard. He didn't play a whole lot. They just really weren't that good. You know when this thing really started getting on track? 2022. And you know what happened in 2022? That was 2 years ago, remember? That was when they beat the Cavs in the first round. They lost to the Heat in the second round. What happened in 2022 was they brought Jalen Brunson in there. All right? So this is what I want people to think about for a second. Stop trying to separate Tom Thibodeau's success from the players, from the front office. This thing all worked together. And mind you, Leon Rose, the president of the Knicks who built this team, what does the Knicks' failures before he got there have to do with him? I keep hearing people say stuff like, oh, this team, this is why the Knicks suck because poor mismanagement. They're firing Tibbs after he did this, this, and that. This is why they were sorry for how many ever years. What that got to do with Leon Rose? Leon Rose wasn't here for all of that. Leon Rose is the guy who brought Tom Thibodeau in here. If he was smart enough to make that move and to get Jalen Brunson in here and build the team that got to the conference finals, then I think he deserves a little bit more benefit of the doubt that he has a plan here to go find someone who can get them over the hump. Because looking at it from my perspective, I think Tibbs maxed out on his potential for this team. And he maxed out in the conference finals. That is really good. That does not mean that there isn't another guy who can take them over the hump. And I think if you saw the Knicks play, if you saw how it just kind of disjointed the offense look, not to mention the struggles they had on defense, I think there's a very clear path to someone coming in here and bringing in a little more creativity to unlock another level for this team. Because there is another level that can be unlocked for this team. Like, people think that conference finals, like, that was some amazing feat. No, that's where they should have been. Going into the season, the Knicks, to me, were the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Now, we came to see over the course of the season, like, okay, the Cavs are a little better than we thought. But that was it. It was only the Cavs that jumped the Knicks in terms of our perspective of the season. The Knicks underperformed this year and still finished third in the Eastern Conference, okay? So we're not talking about like a deep conference full of just juggernauts. The Pacers kind of came from out of nowhere in these playoffs, but they were aided by injuries as usual. Milwaukee with not having Dame Lillard in the first round. Second round, the entire Cavs team just kind of got hurt. And that's not to take anything away from the Pacers. They are clearly a lot better than most of us thought they would be. They were in the conference finals last year, so we probably slept on them, and we shouldn't have. So I want to give the Pacers credit here. The Pacers were also underdogs in that series against the Knicks. Even after all that we saw, the Knicks were favored going into that series. I need people to remember that. It's not an accomplishment for Tom Thibodeau to get to the conference finals and lose to a team he was favored to beat. And the odds are the odds. I understand that everyone doesn't live and die by that, and I don't either. But had I not seen the odds, I would have said the Knicks should be favored in this series. Even if you want to say Tyrese Halliburton was the best player going into that series, I think that's up for debate. I think Jalen Brunson is right there. Halliburton does some other things, obviously, as a playmaker that adds some value to his game. He also disappears offensively in ways that Jalen Brunson doesn't usually disappear. So there's some debate there for me. I don't think there should really be a conversation about who the best number 2 option was between Karl-Anthony Towns and Pascal Siakam. Now, obviously, Siakam outplayed Towns in that series. And Towns does some mind-boggling things that makes that more of a conversation than it should be. So, fine, we can have that conversation between the top 2. But once you start getting to 3, man, like Mikal Bridges, you know, even if you want to say he didn't play up to his potential, I think he's the clear best number 3 between him and OG Anunoby, 3 and 4 between the two teams. And then the Pacers have a deeper bench. But the Knicks gave away a lot of those games, man. I think that's just really what it came down to. And then once Tibbs started making some adjustments, the Knicks were a more competitive team, and it just begs the question, why didn't you try some of this stuff sooner? And so, yeah, man, I think we just need to stop separating the success of the Knicks from the players and the coaches. It all works together, and I think a lot of this, like, everyone wants to give Jalen Brunson all the credit in the world for the clutch shots, clutch player of the year, helping to turn the team around. But as soon as they fire Tibbs, it's like, oh, wait, Tibbs is the coach that did this and that. All right, yeah, but he also had Jalen Brunson. Like, Jalen Brunson had a lot to do with that. Leon Rose, who brought these guys in, had a lot to do with that. I trust that he has a plan if he's firing Tibbs, that he sees what the team needs to take the next step, and he has someone in mind who's going to take them there. So I have no problem at all with them firing Tibbs. It's a tough decision. That's a hard decision. I don't think that this was made easily. Right? I don't think that this was an easy decision to make by any means. I think this was the decision they felt was necessary because they have someone in mind who they know can take them to the next level. Now, who that person is, that's beyond me, man. I'm not someone who's out here researching head coaches a whole lot and knowing what guys are strong at and where, you know, guys can potentially improve the team. I do know the name that everyone's talking about. The name that stands out to me is Mike Malone. And I understand it. I get it. I think Malone, obviously a recent champion, with the Denver Nuggets. And for the most part, I felt like the Nuggets did what they were supposed to do each year under Malone, given the circumstances. Whenever there were injuries, Jamal Murray missing time, they always seemed to just rise to the occasion. Even this past year when he got fired, I felt like similar situation with the Knicks. The bench isn't as deep as it is. There was obviously some inner turmoil between him, Malone, and the GM Calvin Booth, who was also fired. They couldn't agree on which direction to go with the bench. It seemed like one of them wanted to go lean towards young guys and drafting, guys. Another one wanted to bring in veterans and go that direction. And there just seemed to be some friction based off of stuff I was reading about the situation. And so, I don't think that that's necessarily that power struggle is going to exist in New York if they do decide to bring Malone in, because this is clearly Leon Rose's team. And I don't think that, whereas Malone was there before Calvin Booth in Denver, this is Rose building this thing in New York, and Malone is going to be answering to him. And I think they'll have a clear idea of what direction they're going in before they even hire him, if that's the decision they decide to make. Another thing I would like to say about Malone, though, is I wouldn't necessarily just attach his success in Denver to Nikola Jokic, which obviously great head coaches are made by great players. You don't become a championship-winning coach without a great player to ride to that title. So obviously Jokic had a lot to do with Malone's success, but also Malone overachieved in Sacramento. I hope people don't forget that. Like, Malone was a guy who got fired from the Kings back when Boogie Cousins was there. And a lot of people were like, yo, what are the Kings doing? Because Malone was winning in a way. And when I say winning, we're talking relative to what Sacramento was used to around that time. But they were winning in a way that they just hadn't really experienced before Malone got there. So let's take a look at this. All right, so Malone took over the team in 2013-14. The previous year, they were 28-54. He pretty much matched that same year. They went 28-54 in 2013-14. So that was his first year, which also coincided with Boogie Cousins' third year. Now, I hope we all remember where Sacramento was at this time. This team was ass. Like, I'm sure none of you can name who else was on that team unless you're a Kings fan, but we're talking about like Jimmer Fredette, Rudy Gay, was probably the next best player on that team. And Rudy missed some time with injuries. They were getting 20 points a game from Isaiah Thomas, right? This was before he really went to Boston and turned into like an all-star level player. But he was out there getting dogged on defense, but at least he was giving them 20 points a game. My dog Grievous Vasquez got 18 starts for that team. Ain't really seen Grievous since then. Like, old Patrick Patterson started a few games. Like, this team was not good. All right. Derek Williams, I'm sure y'all remember that name. Man, Derek Williams, I ain't heard that one in a while. He was in his second year. Team wasn't good. Malone went in there, won 28 games his first year, basically matching the previous coach. So it wasn't a great first year. That next year, they got off to an 11-13 start to the season before they decided to fire Malone. He was basically 500 that next year with 11 wins. The rest of the year, under George Karl and Tyrone Corbin, they won 18 games. So Malone won 11 games in his first 24 games that year. The rest of the year, they won a combined 18 games. Like, Malone had them on the right direction there. And for some reason, I'm guessing it was probably a power struggle again there. And look, hey, maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the reason why they won't go Malone, right? Maybe there's too much, maybe there's too much pushback when it comes to him. I don't know what the situation in Sacramento was, but I do think he's a guy who seems to be someone unafraid to challenge players and hold them accountable for where, there might be some gaps in their game and their mentality. We saw him frequently call out Nuggets players for not defending hard enough leading up to that championship run. That is something the Knicks desperately need. If you were reading I want to say it was the Athletic article after the Knicks got eliminated, there seemed to be some conflict in the Knicks locker room of players just not being happy with the defensive effort or just kind of the defensive lapses by Karl Anthony Towns. Like, players just really didn't think he understood exactly what was going on. Mike Malone is someone who should be able to come in there and have those conversations. And that's another thing. They didn't really seem comfortable going to each other and having these conversations, which is understandable. It's the first year of Cat being there. Mikal Bridges is there for the first time. Bridges obviously has a relationship with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, but all of those guys haven't really played together like that before. OG Anunoby just got there last year. Like, there's still a lot of learning and relationship building that has to happen, but to me, that seems to be something that Mike Malone is at least strong at, is building those relationships, having guys hold each other accountable, and as a coach, holding people accountable. So I could see why he would be a big name here for them to potentially be interested in. So I'm not mad at that one. A name I keep seeing other people throw out there is Jay Wright. And that one is confusing to me. I got to be honest. I understand Jay Wright coached Jalen Brunson, the Villanova guys. He coached them in college. They won titles together. Why would Jay Wright retire from college where he didn't really seem to want to deal with the NIL and basically the free agency, open transfer portal era of college basketball, to then come to the NBA where that's what it is, right? And not to mention in New York where, hey, man, that's pressure. That's pressure in a way he didn't really have at Villanova because he was the man at Villanova. He already won titles. It was just like, he could do no wrong there. You go to the Knicks and you don't play up to the expectations of what Tom Thibodeau has set, the groundwork he's laid. That's a lot of pressure, man. I don't understand why Jay Wright would ever retire from college. He's living a good life doing this TV stuff, to then go coach the Knicks. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't think that's the move for him at all. I'm not saying the Knicks wouldn't be interested, and honestly, I don't know if any of us even know if Jay Wright would be a good NBA coach. We haven't seen a whole lot of college coaches, college legends, make that jump, to be honest with you. And the few who have tried weren't very good. Like Rick Pitino comes to mind. And so, yeah, I don't like Billy Donovan. I guess he had a little bit of success in OKC, but even he, it wasn't that great. They replaced him to kind of usher in this new era of the Thunder. But yeah, we can wrap this up, man. I think the big takeaway here for me is Tom Thibodeau is a very good coach, and he deserves all the credit in the world for getting the Knicks to this point. But sometimes a new voice is needed, new tactics are needed to unlock another level in the team to take them to the next step. And I think the Knicks are exactly at that point. Had they not fired Tom Thibodeau, matter of fact, me and my coworkers were recording a video about what the Knicks should do next, and the conversation of firing, we just did this yesterday before they fired Tom Thibodeau. And one of the recommendations we made was fire Tom Thibodeau. Like, this was always on the table. And then we had to scrap that video because before we could even get it edited, they actually fired the dude. So I don't think this should be much of a surprise to people, and I don't think it's necessarily a mistake. Where the mistake would come is in who they hire to replace him and how well that coach does and how quick they're able to do it. But they got to get someone in there who can get Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, cover up their mistakes on defense, and then unlock this offense, man. It's way too much talent on this team for that offense to struggle the way it does it sometimes. Like, we don't need to see Jalen Brunson dribble the ball for 18 seconds every possession when you got Karl Anthony Towns out there. We don't need to see Cat unable to get a bucket in the post. We don't need to see Bridges going one-on-one to set up his mid-range. Like, get some ball movement in there, man. You remember and I was one of these people. We thought it was a mistake when the Warriors fired Mark Jackson. And then Steve Kerr went in there and did what he did, man. So that's where I'm at with the Knicks. I want to talk about this situation in Indiana, and that's not the Pacers, but the Hoosiers. And this is actually something I wasn't aware of until like just this morning. I'm gonna pull up this article on the ESPN because I was just reading this and it really kind of blew my mind. Not that we should be surprised that stuff like this happens because we've seen it before, namely Michigan State with their old team doctor Larry Nasser, who um, obviously I believe he's in jail. Is he still alive, yo? But he, sexually assaulted a bunch of gymnasts, as the doctor there in USA Gymnastics. Let's see. Yeah, he's still alive, dude is 61. I guess he's in jail right now, where he belongs. But apparently there was a similar situation at Indiana where at least 15 former men's basketball players are alleging improper sexual conduct by this former team physician under Bobby Knight. The dude's name was Dr. Bradford Bumba. He's dead now, so that's making stuff a little difficult. This was he died last month. But apparently, based on these allegations, this dude was like given, I want to find the exact word in here. In their lawsuit and in interviews, the men say Bamba, who worked as an Indiana men's basketball team physician for nearly 30 years, up until the late 1990s, routinely gave male athletes rectal exams during physicals, even though medical guidance did not recommend them for college-age men. That's disgusting, man. That's disgusting. I said I shouldn't be surprised by this because we've seen stuff like this before. This is the first one I think I've seen that involved like male athletes. Not that it matters at all. Like all of it's disgusting. I'm bringing this up though because this person, this doctor, if he did what he's alleged to have done, he's obviously just a disgusting human being who needs to be held accountable for. Well, he's dead now. He wasn't a disgusting human being if that's the case. But the people who enabled him, like that's what really bugs me. It's like you obviously got mentally disturbed people out here who are going to do things. And as a society, we got to be able to have some checks and balances where like we protect each other from this stuff. And in this situation, these male athletes, these athletes, like in all the other situations, were let down by the institution around them. So the officials at Indiana, Bobby Knight, who already, we got issues with him for different reasons, rest in peace, but why did no one, and this is not a situation where these athletes kept it a secret. Based off of this article, they tried to tell people, like, hey, this doctor's doing stuff. We don't know if he should be, like, you're a teenager. You don't know if this is, like, normal protocol, but you feel like there's something off here, man. Like, this ain't really supposed to be happening. You tell, your administrators, your coaches, and they just laugh it off. Players alleged that they complained about the exams, and some said they asked to see a different physician, but they said Knight and head athletic trainer Tim Garl ordered players to see Bamba regardless. Butch Carter, who played at Indiana in the late 1970s and went on to play and coach in the NBA, wrote in a letter included in the lawsuit that he told Knight he never wanted to see Bamba again for medical care and that he complained multiple times to Knight about the doctor's abusive behavior during physical examinations. Carter is not even a plaintiff in this lawsuit, but he gave a sworn statement describing his own interactions with the doctor. Like, this dude was sick, and his coach and the coaches just kept sending the players to them, laughing it off. It ain't a big deal. I am a 38-year-old man. I'm not 40 yet, So I've had several physicals over my life. I've never had anyone play with my ass during the physical, man. That's not normal. And these kids were subjected to that at the time. Obviously, they're not kids now, grown men. And it seems like they're going to have a hard time in this lawsuit because statute of limitations, the dude is dead. Like, it's going to be a hard, this sounds like from what I'm reading, it's going to be an uphill battle for them to get any kind of justice for this. But if you're Indiana, what a terrible look, man. Like, if this stuff is true and you're Indiana, it's a terrible look as an institution because you're fighting this and your whole thing is, well, statute of limitations. That's your defense. Like, this was a long time ago, and at the time, that stuff might have been seen as normal. We had investigations. They found that, some of this stuff, some of his examinations might have been relevant. It wasn't anything sexual about it. Like, this is a terrible defense. The best thing you can do is just settle this stuff, man. If any of this is like even a hint of it is true, just settle this, man. Do the right thing, because that's awful. That's awful. They failed those young men. They failed them. And I hope that if anyone is experiencing anything similar at any institution right now in this day and age, I hope that someone is brave enough to step up, say something, help, the underage people dealing with something that you don't necessarily know how to deal with at that age. You're not equipped to really understand what the hell is going on. Obviously, social media information, things get out there a little more, so it's easier now than it was then. But it's always nice to have some adults step in and do the right thing. I wish I wouldn't have stayed with the article behind me the whole time. Sometimes I get wrapped up. I get a little get a little passionate. I forgot to switch the screen back, but I think you get my point there. All right, we'll close with this, man. The Clipse are coming back. Pusha T, No Malice. Is he going back to Malice now that he's rapping again, or is he sticking with the No Malice name? I'd be interested to know that. But whatever the case is, the Clipse are back. They had an article drop with GQ. It was a cool little, hey, we're back. This is what we've been up to type of thing. Obviously, a lot of questions about Drake, being that, it's Pusha T, Kanye, Kendrick, Malice, where you been at, brotherhood type stuff. It's a good read. But I think my biggest takeaway from it was, like everyone else, Pusha's claim that Def Jam, basically Clipse had to buy their way out of their Def Jam deal because Def Jam wanted them to take Kendrick Lamar off of the album. They allegedly thought it was a bad look to have Kendrick and Pusha T, two Drake rivals, on a record together, even though the record was not a Drake diss. And Clipse weren't willing to take Kendrick off of the record, obviously. Why would we do that? And so then the two sides agreed to part ways. And so then the Clipse went ahead and joined Roc Nation, and that's where they'll be releasing this album. And if that's true, I gotta say, man, that sounds like the dumbest decision Def Jam, which is under the parent company UMG, could have made. Like, I don't understand the logic in that at all. Like, you got a Clipse song with Kendrick Lamar on it. That sounds like good business. That sounds like something you might want to put some money behind. This thing might go up. But instead, you decide it's a bad look, and that you would rather not do business with Clipse at all, rather than have a song with Kendrick Lamar, who you apparently co-signed in a beef with Drake, where a song called Not Like Us, calling Drake A Certified Pedophile came out, so that was cool, but not a song with the Clipse. That sounds crazy. That really does sound crazy. So I would like to hear a little bit more about that. Push could be animated, so maybe that's not the exact story. But if it is, that sounds insane to me. I don't understand the business sense in that at all. Like, did this have something to do with Drake's lawsuit? Did the lawsuit have something to do with why they wanted to kind of tone it down with the Kendrick stuff? Also, I'm not 100% sure that there weren't any Drake bars in that song. Like, maybe the final version we get on the album that eventually comes out, maybe they toned it down a little bit. Hey man, I'm having a hard time believing Kendrick didn't have no Drake bars in there. If the label was like, no, we're not putting that out, because and look, by the way, still a terrible decision by the label. Let the bars fly, man. Let the bars fly. But even if there were bars in there, I have a hard time seeing the label be like, nah, not right now. Unless the lawsuit really has something to do with it. Maybe the Drake lawsuit is a lot deeper than we know, man. I think Push might be alleging something of the sort online. I haven't really gotten too deep into this. But I really just wanted to bring up the Clipse to say I'm really excited for the album, man. Obviously a big fan of someone from Maryland. They like to claim DMV. They not DMV. They Virginia. You know what I mean? They Virginia, but they not the Virginia part of the V that's, the V. It's a very small part of the V that's in the DMV. It ain't the whole V. And they down there in Virginia, man. They not really DMV. But, I have no problem if we want to expand the definition of the DMV, and I guess that would include Maryland, including Baltimore, because Baltimore is not part of the M. If we keep it in 100 right now, if we want to expand it, I'm not that territorial. You know what I'm saying? We could go ahead and do that, but I'm just letting people who don't know that that's not really how it works. You know what I'm saying? But the first song that they released outside of Chains and Whips, which is the song that Kendrick is on, obviously they teased that a year ago. Walking, doing one of them fashion shows, and that was cool. But the first song that they really teased during this promo run was Ace Trumpets, produced by Pharrell. Sounds phenomenal. Malice ain't lost a step. Push is obviously Push. I'm really excited for this one, man. I'm really excited to see them get in their bag. One thing they mentioned in the GQ article was how Clipse didn't really like, they think their weakest project was the last Clipse album before, they kind of stopped making music together. It's escaping my, what was the name of that Clipse album? Till the Casket Dropped. 2009, Till the Casket Dropped. The first one was Lord Willing, then Hell Hath No Fury. Obviously, people love those. Till the Casket Dropped came out in 2009. I gotta be honest, man. I was rocking that joint. Like, to them, it might be their weakest project, but it wasn't weak by any means. I like Till the Casket Dropped. Matter of fact, I might go listen to that after I close this joint up. But I say that to say, even their weakest offering was a good offering. And from what this article was saying, this upcoming album, Let God Sort Them Out. That's what it's called. Let God Sort Them Out. Even this one, they say is better than Till the Casket Drop. And if that's the case, man, I need it. You know what I mean? I need it. So I can't wait for that one. It's coming July 11th. And that's what we'll go ahead and lead this off at, man. We can call it a wrap. I appreciate your time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Live Life Live. I'll catch y'all next time.